Hello folks, welcome to Peach Guitars. My name's Jack Griffiths, and today we're going to focus quickly on three fairly new, at least new to me, amplifiers from one of my favourite all-time brands, Dr.Z, just specifically to annoy any American viewers. Dr.Z, as they're better known. One of our favourite brands, still an exclusive brand here for us at Peach in the UK. And what's nice for me to see is that having had a bit of time away from this industry, Dr.Z are still on the top form when it comes to making these handmade, very specific attention to detail kind of guitar amplifiers. Now, they're not for everybody, but if they are for you, and you probably know this already, they represent one of the very best value propositions in the valve guitar amp space these days, because they just kind of cover the whole gamut of those classic designs, but they've been refined and tweaked to certain points to suit players' needs, and that is their principal kind of philosophy with amp design. It's all about what the player needs. Not just you and I, but also some big names that use these amps. So I'm going to delve in a little deeper to three of the most recent offerings. We've got the Octal Six, we've got the X-Ray, and we have the Z-40. So the way we approached this specific video is not to do an in-depth review of each amp, but rather to use them practically. So what we tend to do here is we film a lot of listing videos for the stock and the inventory that we have, and that is really going to put an amp through its paces, because what I do is I just like to plug in, get as nice a foundational tone as I can, which is usually clean with a little hint of compression and breakup, and then I'll use pedals, and really the purpose of the amp is just to uphold the tonal qualities of each guitar that we demonstrate to the best of its ability. So that's really, as far as I'm concerned, the best test I can give an amplifier. So what I'll do is just kind of give you a few thoughts and recollections of each amp, and then you're going to hear some audio examples to back up what I'm saying. So amp number one is probably the most unique on this list. This is the Octal Six. Now the reason this is the most unique is that this is the first time, I don't know if in amp history, but certainly in Z's history, that this particular tube complement or valve complement was used. So rather than the traditional kind of format of using 12AX7s or EF86s in the preamp section, Dr.Z designed this amp specifically with these octal valves, which are actually more typically used for power amp sections, but they were used as the preamp valve. Specifically, I'm talking about 16SN7 and 16SL7. So these octal preamp valves gave a really unique tone, and this amp was kind of designed with Joe Walsh in mind, and I believe in conjunction with Joe as well. Now, I don't know exactly what Joe was demanding out of a guitar amplifier this time around, but to my ear, using this unique preamp valve in conjunction with 7591 output valves, again, valves I'm not familiar with, this particular tube complement has a very robust kind of mid-range. Now, I will say, when I was dialing in the kind of tone that I typically go for, I'm not always looking for that kind of strong mid-range. I actually like a little more top. But I could still get that tone, and the nice thing is having that extra muscle in the mid-range meant you get a little bit more character out of each guitar. say this amp probably has a little more of a tweed type of response, in that it has a little bit more of eager compression in the front end. Still has plenty of headroom, because Z watts, if you're familiar with this term, always denote that the power rating of the amp, which in this case is about 28 watts, is often sort of underplayed a little bit. You get a lot of response out of the power section, which means you can get nice loud powerful cleans if you want, but the nice thing about this amp is it's always eager just to ease you into compression, and it has a really nice satisfying feel under the fingers. So this tube complement coupled with a solid state rectifier means that you get this very powerful but immediate kind of response, which makes it really great as a pedal platform in my opinion. I'm not so keen sometimes on a valve rectifier, only because of the way that I personally play and the way I like to interact certain distortion and overdrive pedals and modulation and delay and reverb and stuff like that with the amplifier. I personally like a solid state rectifier, and that's what this amp is all about. Okay, on to amp number 2, the X-Ray. Now, I'll be honest with you, this is the one that I struggled a little bit with, just because it's very unique. And Z is very good at this. They like to challenge the user sometimes in giving you these great tones, but maybe not in a conventional layout in terms of the EQ or the way the gain structure works in the amp. You maybe have to spend a little bit of time with it, which means that this might not be that plug and play kind of amp for you, but if you're willing to spend a bit of time with it, it can deliver some really cool and unique guitar sounds. So, as I'm led to believe, this amp was kind of born out of an amalgamation of two of Brad Paisley, who's a very, very well-known Dr.Z user for many years, two of his favorite guitar amplifiers, the DB4 and the Stangray. These amps kind of had slightly different lineage and came from different places than where the X-Ray is perhaps trying to go, but by combining the sensibilities of those two amps and including a very well-designed master volume, you now get an amp that's a little bit more livable and usable in different situations than either of those two amps would have been, as well as expanding the tonal palette that it can offer you. So tube complement in this amp, we've now got a valve rectifier, so the 5AR4 makes an appearance, which gives that nice kind of slightly spongier, a little bit more forgiving feel when you're playing quite fast or with a lot of attack. It kind of molds to your hand a little bit better than maybe a solid state rectifier might do. We've got 6 N14N power valves, which we've seen in some other Z amps in the past, and they're essentially like a military spec EL84. They have a similar kind of tonality. Now, where I slightly struggled with this amp is in its EQ. So you have a cut control for the power section. That's all well and good. The EQ, or the tone control, you've got one control, and it's essentially a kind of tilt style EQ. Now, this can work brilliantly, and what it is very good for is if you just need to nudge the EQ in a particular direction. Say if you're jumping from a single coil to a humbucker or vice versa, counterclockwise essentially gives you more bass and dips the treble and upper mid content. Going clockwise does the opposite and reduces the bass. It can be hard to find that balance, but when you do, it's going to feel nice under the fingers. You can get a nice balance, but it's just not what I'm necessarily used to when I go for dialing in an amp for this application anyway. That said, you still get some really nice, classic and characterful valve amplifier tones, as you will hear. Lastly then, probably my favourite of the three, I dare to say, the Z-40. So this amp was born out of the Z-80, which came about a couple of years ago, and I remember seeing this when it was released and thinking, that is a cool guitar amplifier. Essentially, this was harking back to some of the earliest and rarest Vox amplifiers that used EL34 power amp valves, as opposed to the EL84s they're better known for, which gives a much more robust and powerful kind of response, combined with that chimey, compressed, beautiful, glassy preamp tone that Voxes are known for. That to me is the perfect guitar amplifier. I dare say that is exactly what I'm looking for, specifically for this job, but also anytime I plug into a valve guitar amp. That's the response I want. I want that nice, very delicate and finessed front end with a whole heap of power to back it up in the power section. That's exactly what this has. So this time it's half of the 80. So we've got 2 EL34s as opposed to the 4 in the Z80. You also have the option of switching between a solid state or a valve rectifier. So again, just depends on your preference and the application. Typically, if you're cranking the amp up and you're getting a bit of drive from it, maybe the valve rectifier is a bit more forgiving. For me though, in a cleaner tone, I like the solid state rectifier. This one is definitely the most responsive to using pedals with, in my opinion. So in terms of just having a more traditional EQ layout and the cut control, which works brilliantly to tame some of those high-end frequencies from the power section, you can pretty much set everything at 12 o'clock with very subtle adjustments if needed, and let your pedals and the controls on your guitar do the rest. So that was a brief outline of each of those three amplifiers. I think you'll agree all three of them sound great, and they can be used in very musical applications with whatever kind of style that you play. I do personally have a bit of a soft spot for the Z-40, but that's just me. I'd like to know what you think, so let me know down in the comments which is your favourite of the three, and indeed, if there's another Z amplifier that's just absolute top tier of all time favourite for you, let us know that too in the comments. I will say also, all three of these amps are available either as a head, as you've seen in this video, or as a 1x12 combo. Z really makes player-friendly combos in terms of they're quite lightweight, they're quite easy to move, they're not absolute boat anchors like some other amplifiers can be, but a head is always the more practical choice if you want variety. So that's it for today's video, folks. I hope you enjoyed the tones and a little bit of talk about each amp. If you want to find out more, of course, more information can be found on our website, peachguitars.com, which will be linked down in the description below. So let us know your favourite down in the comments. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.